The coffee had gone cold hours ago, but Amy Torres kept drinking it anyway. She sat in her captain's chair aboard the exploration ship Frontier Dawn, watching endless stars drift past the main screen. 3 months of deep space patrol meant 3 months of nothing but empty void and routine sensor sweeps. Her crew had started making bets about who would see the first interesting thing. David Lee won that bet when his console started beeping like crazy. "Captain, I'm getting something weird here," the young communications officer called out, his fingers dancing across his controls. "It's a transmission, but it's not from any human ship." Torres set down her coffee cup and walked over to David's station. The bridge was small compared to military vessels, but it felt right for a ship meant to explore rather than fight. "Put it through the translator and let's hear it." Static filled the bridge speakers for a moment, then cleared into words that made everyone freeze. "Please, anyone listening, we need help. This is the research ship Gentle Current from the Aquilan Republic. Pirates are attacking us. Our engines are damaged and we cannot escape. We have families on board, scientists and their children on a research mission. If anyone can hear this, we are in the Kepler system near the 4th planet. Please help us." The message repeated twice more, then cut to nothing but static. Torres felt her stomach tighten. She knew about the Aquilans, peaceful fish-like beings who spent their time studying ocean worlds. They had helped humanity several times, sharing their knowledge of water purification and underwater farming. They were good people. And now they were in trouble. "David, how far is the Kepler system?" "About 4 hours at maximum speed, Captain." Torres looked around her bridge. Her ship carried only basic weapons, enough to deal with pirates or raiders, but nothing fancy. Still, she could not ignore a distress call, especially from the Aquilans. "Set course for Kepler system, full speed," she ordered. "And David, send a message back to Earth Command. Tell them we have civilians under attack and request immediate backup." "What should I tell them about the pirates?" David asked, already working at his console. "Tell them the truth. Unknown hostile forces attacking civilian scientists. Make it a priority, one message." As the Frontier Dawn jumped to faster-than-light speed, Torres had no idea that her simple request for backup would trigger the largest military response in human history. The message reached Earth Command in minutes, where night shift operators read it with growing alarm. "Attack on civilians. Aquilan Republic, one of humanity's few real friends in the galaxy. Children in danger." The operators followed protocol and sent the message up the chain of command. Within an hour, it reached Admiral Helen Cross at Luna Command, who read it 3 times before reaching for her emergency communicator. "This is Admiral Cross. I need to speak with Fleet Command immediately. We have a Code 7 situation." Code 7 meant civilian lives in immediate danger. It also meant that any available military vessel could respond without waiting for orders. The message went out across human space on all military frequencies. Captain Beth Morgan was loading supplies on her destroyer Thunder Bay when the message came through. She read it once, then called her crew back to the ship. "Emergency departure. In 30 minutes. We have civilians under attack." The same scene played out on dozens of ships across human space. Captains who had never met the Aquilans personally still knew the stories, how they had saved a human colony ship from engine failure, how they freely shared their technology, how they treated humans as equals when other species called them dangerous. Within 6 hours of Torres sending her message, 57 human warships were heading toward the Kepler system. But that was just the beginning. News traveled fast in the human fleet network. Off-duty officers called their friends. Retired military personnel who now worked for private companies started making phone calls. Merchant ship captains who remembered. Aquilan kindness began changing their routes. Admiral Cross watched the situation board in her command center as more and more ships reported in. First dozens, then hundreds of vessels were converging on the Kepler system. "Ma'am," her aide reported, "we're getting volunteer requests from civilian ships too. Merchants, corporate security, Even some colony defense forces want to help. Cross nodded grimly. This was how humans responded to threats against their friends, not with careful political calculations, but with overwhelming force and absolute determination. "Patch me through to all responding vessels," she ordered. Across human space, ship captains listened as their admiral's voice came through their speakers. "This is Admiral Helen Cross, to all ships responding to the Kepler situation. The Aquilans are our friends and allies. They have helped us countless times and asked for nothing in return. Today, they need our help. I don't care what political games other species play. I don't care about diplomatic consequences. Today, anyone who threatens our friends learns why Earth is called a death world." The response was immediate. Hundreds of voices acknowledging the order, ready to fight for people they might never meet, but considered family nonetheless. Meanwhile, Captain Torres and the Frontier Dawn dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler system. What she saw made her blood run cold. The Aquilan research ship, Gentle Current, drifted near a small moon, its hull scarred by weapon fire. 3 dark ships circled it like vultures, sleek predatory vessels that Torres recognized from intelligence briefings as Dominion raiders. "David, try to raise the Aquilan ship," she ordered. After a moment, David nodded. "I've got them, Captain. Weak signal, but they're alive." "Put them through." The voice that came through the speakers was weak but grateful. "Human vessel, this is Captain Reef Swimming of the Gentle Current. Thank you for coming, but you should leave. These raiders have powerful weapons." Torres smiled grimly. "Captain Reef Swimming, help is on the way. Just hold on a little longer." "How long?" the Aquilan asked. Torres checked her sensor display. The first human military ships were still 3 hours away, but her long-range sensors were picking up. Something else, a massive formation of faster-than-light signatures heading their way. "Not long at all," she said, watching as over 200 human warships prepared to drop out of hyperspace in the Kepler system. Not long at all. The alarm bells in Luna Command had been ringing for 6 hours straight, but Admiral Helen Cross felt more awake than she had in months. She stood in the main operations center, surrounded by holographic displays showing ship movements across half the galaxy. What had started as a simple rescue mission was turning into the largest fleet mobilization since the colonial wars. "Status report, General," she said to Mike Thompson, head of fleet operations. Thompson looked up from his tactical display, his face showing a mix of pride and concern. "Ma'am, we started with 57 ships from the 3rd Fleet. That number is now over 400 and climbing." Cross watched the display as more ship icons appeared on the tactical map. "Destroyers from the Mars Defense Force, cruisers from the Outer Colony Guard, even corporate security vessels were joining the formation." "They're not waiting for orders," Thompson continued. "Captains are volunteering their ships and crews the moment they hear about the situation." Cross understood why. 3 years ago, an Aquilan research vessel had suffered critical engine failure near Earth. The human rescue efforts had saved over 200 alien lives, including many children. Since then, the Aquilans had become humanity's closest alien, friends, sharing technology and knowledge freely. "Ma'am, we're getting a message from the President," a communications officer called out. "Put him through." President Carter's voice filled the command center. "Admiral, I'm getting reports about massive fleet movements. What's the situation?" "Sir, we have Aquilan civilians under attack by unknown hostiles. Our ships are responding to assist." "How many ships are we talking about?" Cross looked at the display. "Currently 412 vessels, sir. More joining every hour." There was silence on the line for a moment. "Admiral, that's almost our entire active fleet." "Yes, sir, it is." Another pause. "Carry on, Admiral. Bring our friends home." Cross smiled. That was why she served under President Carter. He understood that some things mattered more than politics. "General Thompson, what's our tactical situation?" Thompson brought up a detailed map of the Kepler system. "Captain Torres in the Frontier. Dawn is maintaining contact with the Aquilan vessel." 3 hostile ships. We're identifying them as Dominion raiders. They're keeping the Aquilon ship damaged, but not destroying it. They're playing with them, Cross said grimly. The Dominion was known for this, attacking weaker species to send messages about their power. First wave of our ships arrives in 2 hours, Thompson continued. But ma'am, we're looking at over 400 ships hitting that system. The Dominion raiders won't know what hit them. Cross nodded. Humanity had learned long ago that overwhelming response prevented future conflicts. Hit hard enough the first time, and potential enemies thought twice before trying again. Ma'am, another officer called out, we're getting volunteer requests. From civilian sectors, too. Merchant captains, corporate fleets, even some colony defense ships want to join. Cross was not surprised. The story of human Aquilon friendship was well known throughout human space. When the Aquilons first arrived near Earth, many humans had been suspicious of aliens. But the Aquilons had proven themselves through actions, helping human colonies develop underwater agriculture, sharing medical knowledge, and always treating humans with respect despite Earth's reputation as a death world. Patch me through to all responding vessels, Cross ordered. Across human space, hundreds of ship captains listened as their admiral spoke. This is Admiral Helen Cross to all ships responding to Operation Lifeline. The Aquilons have stood with us as friends and equals. They saved human lives when they didn't have to. They shared their knowledge when they could have kept it secret. Today, they need our help, and we will not let them down. The response came back as a chorus of acknowledgments from every ship in the growing fleet. Cross turned to Thompson. How long until our main force reaches the Kepler system? 2 hours for the first wave, 4 hours for the main fleet. Cross looked at the tactical display showing the 3 Dominion ships still circling the damaged Aquilon vessel like predators, toying with prey. Signal all ships. Maximum speed to target. I want every Dominion raider in that system to see exactly what happens when they threaten our friends. Meanwhile, in the Kepler system, Captain Torres maintained her position at the edge of sensor range, watching the 3 Dominion ships continue their attack on the gentle current. Her communications officer, David Lee, had been in constant contact with the Aquilon ship. Captain, David reported, the Aquilons say their life support is holding, but their engines are completely dead. They can't maneuver at all. Torres felt her jaw tighten. The Dominion raiders were deliberately keeping the Aquilon ship helpless, probably planning to board it and take prisoners. That was their usual tactic. Capture some survivors to intimidate other species. Any word from our backup? Yes, ma'am. Admiral Cross confirms over 400 ships en route. First arrivals in 90 minutes. Torres smiled grimly. 400 ships. When she had sent her request for backup, she had hoped for maybe a dozen vessels. The response was far beyond anything she had imagined. Her tactical officer spoke up. Captain, the Dominion ships are changing position. Looks like they're preparing to board the Aquilon vessel. Torres made her decision. The Frontier Dawn was just one small exploration ship against 3 raiders, but she could not stand by and watch civilians be captured. All hands, battle stations. Helm, take us in. Captain, her first officer protested, we're outnumbered 3-1. Torres looked at him steadily. Ray, those are children on that ship. Aquilon children whose parents trusted them to a scientific mission. I won't let them be taken prisoner by raiders. As the Frontier Dawn moved toward the Dominion ships, Torres opened a channel to the Aquilon vessel. Captain Reef swimming. This is Captain Torres. We're moving to intercept the raiders. Help is coming, but we're going to keep them busy until it arrives. The Aquilon captain's response was filled with gratitude and concern. Captain Torres, your ship is small. You should wait for your fleet. Our fleet will be here soon enough, Torres replied. Right now, you need someone watching. You're back. The Frontier Dawn was small and lightly armed, but it was fast, and its crew was skilled. As it approached the 3 Dominion raiders, Torres felt the familiar calm that came before battle. She had 90 minutes to keep 3 enemy ships busy. 90 minutes until over 400 human warships arrived to show the Dominion what happened when they threatened humanity's friends. 90 minutes until the galaxy learned why Earth was called the Death World. High Commander Vorth enjoyed watching his prey suffer. From the command deck of his flagship Iron Claw, he watched the pathetic Aquilan research vessel drift helplessly through space. Its shields flickered weakly, and he could see atmosphere leaking from several hull breaches. Perfect. "Status report," he commanded, his reptilian voice echoing through the bridge. "The alien ship's weapons are offline, engines destroyed," his tactical officer reported. "Life support is failing slowly. We estimate 6 hours before total system collapse." Vorth's forked tongue flicked out in satisfaction. This was exactly what the Dominion Empire wanted, a clear demonstration of their power that would spread throughout the galaxy. The Aquilans were known as peaceful scientists, respected by many species. Their destruction would send a message that even the most innocent civilizations were not safe from Dominion expansion. "Sir, the aliens are still broadcasting distress signals on all frequencies," his communications officer announced. "Excellent," Vorth replied. "Let them call for help. When no one comes to save them, other species will understand the futility of resisting us." The Dominion had built their empire through calculated brutality. Their home world had produced a species of natural predators, large, strong, and aggressive. They understood only power and conquest. In the past 50 years, they had conquered over 30 star systems, each victory making the next easier as word spread of their ruthlessness. "Sir, we have a single contact approaching from the outer system." Vorth barely glanced at the sensor display. "One ship? Some foolish hero thinking to rescue these fish creatures. Destroy it when it comes into range." But his sensor operator was frowning at his instruments. "Sir, I'm detecting some unusual readings from the approaching vessel." "What kind of readings?" "The ship appears to be of unknown design. Energy signatures don't match any vessel in our database." Vorth felt a flicker of interest. Unknown technology might be worth capturing. "Identify the species." "Analyzing." "Sir, based on the ship's design and energy patterns, I believe it's a human vessel." The bridge fell silent. Every member of the Dominion military had heard stories about humans, the species from a world so dangerous that survival there required becoming apex predators. The galaxy called their planet a death world, where everything from the weather to the wildlife tried to kill the inhabitants. "Just one human ship?" Vorth asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "Yes, sir. Small exploration vessel, lightly armed." Vorth relaxed slightly. One ship, even a human ship, posed no real threat to his 3 raiders. Still, he had heard enough stories to be cautious. "Maintain distance. Let's see what this Death Worlder does." The human ship approached slowly, taking position between the Dominion vessels and the damaged Aquilan ship. It was small compared to the raiders, but something about its movements made Vorth uneasy. It moved with purpose, like a predator choosing its ground. "Sir, the human ship is broadcasting a message. Put it through." A human voice filled the bridge, speaking in accented galactic standard. "Dominion vessels, this is Captain Torres of the human ship Frontier Dawn. You are attacking civilians. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Vorth's officers exchanged glances. One small ship challenging 3 raiders seemed like madness, but humans were known for their unpredictable behavior. "Open a channel," Vorth ordered. When the connection was established, he spoke in his most intimidating voice. "Human, you are outnumbered 3 to 1. Leave now or share the fate of these pathetic fish." The response was immediate and cold. "High Commander, I suggest you scan the outer system. Help is on the way." Vorth felt a chill run down his spine. "Scan long-range sensors. Full spectrum." His sensor operator worked frantically at his console. After a moment, he looked up with fear in his eyes. "Sir, I'm detecting massive hyperspace disturbances approaching the system. Multiple contacts, dozens of them. How many? Vorth demanded. Still counting, sir. At least 60 vessels, possibly more. Vorth stared at the sensor display in disbelief. 60 ships responding to one distress call? That seemed impossible, but the evidence was right there on his screens. Sir, his sensor operator continued, his voice shaking. The readings are getting stronger. I'm now counting over 100 contacts inbound. 100 ships. Vorth's 3 raiders suddenly seemed very small and very alone. But surely the humans were bluffing. No species would risk war over one alien research vessel. Sir, more contacts appearing. The number is now over 200 vessels and still climbing. 200. Vorth felt something he had never experienced in his long military career. Genuine terror. The sensor readings showed ships of all sizes, from small frigates to massive dreadnoughts. This was not a rescue mission. This was a full military fleet. Communications. Try to contact Dominion Command. We need immediate reinforcement. Sir, our nearest fleet is 6 days away. 6 days. Vorth looked at his tactical display showing 3 Dominion raiders facing what appeared to be the entire human military. The mathematics were simple and terrifying. Sir, the first human ships are dropping out of hyperspace. The main screen lit up as dozens of human warships materialized in the outer system. They were unlike anything Vorth had ever seen. Sleek, predatory vessels that seemed designed for maximum lethality. Each one bristled with weapons that looked capable of destroying planets. Sir, more ships arriving. Count is now over 300. 300 ships. Vorth watched in horrified fascination as the human fleet continued to grow. These were not just military vessels. He could identify cargo haulers converted to carriers, corporate security ships, even what looked like civilian craft armed for war. Sir, we're being hailed by the human fleet. Put it through. A new voice came through the speakers, calm and authoritative. Dominion forces, this is Admiral Helen Cross of the Human Defense Fleet. You have attacked civilians under our protection. You have 30 seconds to begin immediate withdrawal from this system, or we will consider your presence an act of war. Vorth looked at his tactical display. 300 human ships versus his 3 raiders. The choice was simple: retreat or face complete annihilation. But the Dominion had never retreated from anyone. Their reputation was built on never showing weakness. If word spread that they had fled from battle, their entire empire might collapse, as subject species rebelled. Sir, what are your orders? His tactical officer asked. Vorth stared at the human fleet, knowing that his next decision would determine not just his fate, but possibly the fate of his entire species. The humans had just demonstrated something that no one in the galaxy had expected. They were willing to deploy their entire military to protect a single alien research vessel. As the 30-second deadline approached, Vorth realized that the Dominion Empire had just made the worst mistake in its history. They had attacked the friends of the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. The silence in space was broken by the thunder of weapons fire. High Commander Vorth had made his choice. The Dominion Empire would not show weakness, even facing impossible odds. His 3 raiders opened fire on the nearest human ships, their plasma cannons lighting up the darkness between stars. It was the last decision Vorth would ever make. Admiral Helen Cross watched from the bridge of her flagship Retribution as the Dominion ships committed suicide by attacking her fleet. Around her, over 400 human vessels hung in space like a pack of wolves surrounding cornered prey. All ships weapons free, she commanded. Show them why Earth is called the Death World. What happened next would be studied in military academies for centuries. The human fleet did not simply overwhelm the Dominion raiders with superior numbers. They demonstrated why evolution on the most dangerous planet in the galaxy had created the most terrifying predators in space. Captain Beth Morgan's destroyer Thunder Bay was the first to engage. Her ship dove toward the Dominion flagship like a hunting hawk, rolling and spinning to avoid return fire, while her plasma cannons tore chunks out of the enemy's hull. The maneuver would have killed any normal crew from the gravitational forces, but humans had evolved on a world where such stresses were part of daily life. "Target their engines," Morgan ordered, her voice calm despite pulling forces that would have crushed most alien species. "I want them alive to see what comes next." The Dominion ship tried to turn to bring its main guns to bear, but 3 more human destroyers had already flanked it. They moved in perfect coordination, like a pack hunting together, each ship covering the others while striking at exposed weak points. From the carrier New Horizon, Captain Robert Kim launched his fighter squadrons. The small craft swarmed around the second Dominion raider, their pilots pulling impossible turns and acceleration changes. Each fighter was a masterpiece of human engineering, designed to be flown by beings who considered extreme gravitational stress normal. "Red Squadron, hit their shield generators," Kim commanded. "Blue Squadron, take out their point defense. Green Squadron, go for the bridge." The Dominion ship's crew watched in terror as human fighters danced around their weapons, fire, moving in patterns that seemed to defy physics. The pilots were pulling maneuvers that should have turned their bodies into liquid, but they laughed and joked on the communication channels as if they were playing a game. Meanwhile, the massive dreadnought Earthbreaker approached the third Dominion, raider with the slow, inevitable movement of a natural disaster. Its main guns could crack continents, and its captain, Admiral Stone, had no intention of holding back. "This is for attacking children," Stone said quietly, and fired. The Dominion raider simply ceased to exist, vaporized in an instant of incredible energy that lit up the entire system. But it was the tactical coordination that truly horrified any surviving Dominion crew. Every human ship moved as part of a greater organism, sharing sensor data instantly, coordinating attacks, and covering each other's movements. They fought like a single predator with hundreds of bodies, each part working perfectly with all the others. Captain Torres, still in her small exploration ship Frontier Dawn, watched in amazement as the human fleet tore the Dominion raiders apart. The entire battle lasted less than 15 minutes. "David, open a channel to the Aquilon ship," she ordered. "Captain Reef swimming," Torres said when the connection was established. "This is Captain Torres. The threat has been neutralized. We're dispatching rescue ships to assist with your repairs." The Aquilon captain's voice was filled with wonder. "Captain Torres, your people, they came for us. So many ships, for just one research vessel." Torres smiled. "Captain, you saved our people on Titan Station when their life support failed. You've shared your technology with our colonies. You've treated us as friends when others fear us." Her voice hardened slightly. "In human culture, we protect our friends. All of them." Across the battlefield, Admiral Cross surveyed the wreckage of the Dominion raiders. 2 ships had been completely destroyed, their crews dead. The third, High Commander Vorth's flagship, was crippled but intact. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "the surviving Dominion ship is requesting permission to surrender." Cross considered this. The Dominion Empire needed to receive a message, and dead enemies could not carry messages home. "Patch me through to their commander." When the connection was established, Cross spoke in the cold, measured tone of an apex predator addressing beaten prey. "High Commander Vorth, your attack on Aquilon civilians was an act of cowardice. In human space, cowards who attack the innocent face judgment." Vorth's voice came through the speakers, broken and defeated. "Admiral Cross, we surrender. We did not know the Aquilons were under human protection." "They were not under our formal protection," Cross replied, "but they are our friends, and humans protect their friends. You will return to your empire with this message. Any species that attacks civilians, threatens peaceful research missions, or preys upon the innocent will answer to us." Cross paused, then continued with deadly certainty. Your empire has built its reputation on bullying smaller species. Today, you learn what happens when bullies meet real predators. The surviving Dominion ship limped away from the battlefield, carrying word of humanity's response to threats against their allies. As news spread throughout the galaxy, 3 major empires collapsed as their subject species rebelled, confident that human fleets would protect them from retaliation. Captain Torres docked her ship with the damaged Aquilan research vessel to personally check on the civilians. She found Captain Reef swimming, waiting for her in the airlock, along with several young Aquilans who looked at her with wide, grateful eyes. "Captain Torres," Reef Swimming said, "how can we ever repay this kindness?" Torres looked at the Aquilan children, remembering her own daughter back on Earth. "You already have, Captain. You've been our friends when others called us monsters. You've shared your knowledge freely. You've shown us that the galaxy has room for both predators and peaceful scientists." She smiled. "Besides, that's what friends do for each other." As the human fleet began rescue operations and the Aquilan research vessel was towed to safety, word of the battle spread across the galaxy. In one afternoon, humanity had established itself as the ultimate deterrent against aggressive expansion. The age of galactic bullying was over. The Deathworlders had spoken and the universe had listened. The Grand Assembly Hall on Haven Prime had never been so quiet. Representatives from 47 different species sat in stunned silence as Ambassador Lisa Chen finished reading the formal report on the Kepler system incident. The massive chamber, with its crystal dome showing the stars above, felt more like a courtroom than a diplomatic meeting. "The final casualty count," Chen continued in her measured voice, "was 3 Dominion vessels destroyed, with the loss of approximately 2,000 crew members. The Aquilan research vessel Gentle Current suffered no fatalities, and all civilian personnel, including 43 children, were rescued safely. Ambassador Chen was humanity's most experienced diplomat, chosen specifically for her ability to remain calm under pressure. Today, that skill was being tested as never before. Around the circular assembly, alien representatives whispered among themselves, their various forms of communication creating a low buzz of nervous energy. The Dominion delegate, Commander Hask, sat alone in his section. His species' massive frame seemed smaller somehow, hunched in defeat. 3 weeks ago, the Dominion Empire had controlled 30 star systems and commanded fear throughout this sector of the galaxy. Now, rebellion was spreading through there. Territory as subject species declared independence, confident that human protection would keep them safe from retaliation. "Ambassador Chen," called out the Zephyrian representative, her crystalline form chiming like wind bells. "The human response seems excessive. 400 warships to rescue 1 research vessel?" Chen turned to face the Zephyrian delegate. "Representative Crystal Song, the human response was proportional to the threat. Civilians were under attack. Children were in danger. Our reaction was exactly what any species should expect if they threaten innocent lives." "But the destruction was so complete," pressed the delegate from the Hegemony Coalition. "Surely negotiation would have been preferable." Chen's expression hardened slightly. Negotiation was attempted. Admiral Cross gave the Dominion forces 30 seconds to withdraw. They chose to continue their attack on civilians. The consequences were their choice. Ambassador Finn Whistlecurrent of the Aquilan Republic rose to speak, his melodious voice carrying clearly through the hall. "If I may address the assembly, the human response saved the lives of our people. Our children are alive today because humanity chose to act decisively against those who would harm the innocent." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The Aquilans were universally respected for their peaceful nature and scientific achievements. Their support for humanity's actions carried significant weight. "Furthermore," Whistlecurrent continued, "I wish to propose a formal alliance between the Aquilan Republic and the Human Federation. We believe that cooperation between our species will benefit both our civilizations and contribute to galactic peace." The reaction was immediate. Representatives began talking at once, their various forms of communication creating chaos in the assembly hall. Alliance with the humans meant protection from aggressive empires, but it also meant accepting the death. Worlders as partners rather than dangerous outsiders. Chen waited for the noise to die down before speaking again. The Human Federation is prepared to extend protection agreements to any peaceful species that requests them. We will not impose our presence where it is not wanted, but we will not stand by while civilians are attacked by aggressive empires. The implications were staggering. Overnight, humanity had become the galaxy's ultimate deterrent against conquest and expansion. Species that had lived in fear of larger neighbors suddenly had an option: align with the humans and gain protection. From the most feared military in known space, Commander Hask finally spoke, his voice heavy with defeat. What? What are humanity's terms for the Dominion Empire? Chen consulted her datapad. Full reparations to the Aquilan Republic for damages to their research vessel, complete withdrawal from all Aquilan space, recognition of human protection rights over civilian scientific missions, and, she paused for effect, formal acknowledgement that attacks on civilians will result in military response from the Human Defense Fleet. You're demanding we change our entire approach to expansion, Hask protested. We're demanding you stop attacking civilians, Chen replied coldly. Your empire built its reputation on terrorizing smaller species. That ends now. After the formal session, Chen met privately with several key delegates. The first was Ambassador Whistlecurrent, who had requested a personal meeting. Ambassador Chen, your people's response was beyond what we hoped for. We had expected perhaps a single ship to help us escape. Chen smiled warmly. Ambassador, your people have helped us many times. When our colony on Kepler 442b faced crop failure, you shared your agricultural techniques. When our research station needed underwater equipment, you provided it freely. You've treated us as equals when others call us dangerous. She paused, looking out at the stars visible through the crystal dome. In human culture, loyalty matters more than politics. You've been loyal friends, so we protect you as family. Your military response was so coordinated, Whistlecurrent observed. 400 ships moving as one force. How is such unity possible? Training. And shared purpose, Chen replied. Every human military officer knows our core principle. Civilians must be protected, friends must be defended, and bullies must be stopped. When those principles are threatened, we respond as one people. Later that day, Chen met with representatives from 12 smaller species that had requested private meetings. Each one had the same message. They wanted human protection from aggressive neighbors. The hegemony has been demanding tribute from our colonies, explained the Deltaran ambassador. They say our refusal means war. The consortium keeps expanding into our territory, added the representative from the Free Worlds Alliance. They claim uninhabited space, but it's our traditional hunting grounds. Chen listened to each story of intimidation and aggression. These were the tactics that had worked for millennia. Large empires bullying smaller species into submission through threats of overwhelming force. The Human Federation will consider protection agreements with any peaceful species, she told them. Our terms are simple. No aggression against other species, respect for civilian populations, and mutual defense cooperation. What would such protection mean in practical terms? Asked the Deltaran ambassador. Chen smiled. It means that any attack on your people will be considered an attack on human interests. It means that aggressive empires will face the same response that the Dominion faced at Kepler. The message was clear. Under human protection, small species could develop peacefully without fear of conquest or intimidation. Back on Earth, President Carter met with his military advisors in the Oval Office. The reports from Haven Prime were encouraging, but they also brought new responsibilities. Mr. President, Admiral Cross reported via hologram from Luna Command, we're receiving protection requests from over 60 species. Our fleet expansion program is ahead of schedule, but we'll need significant increases in shipbuilding capacity. Carter nodded thoughtfully. What about public opinion? How are people reacting to becoming the galaxy's protectors? Support is overwhelming, sir. The rescue of the Aquilan children has been major news. People see it as defending our friends, rather than military expansion. General Thompson added, Sir, recruitment is up 400%. Young people want to serve in the fleet that protects innocent civilians. We're having to turn away qualified applicants. Carter stood and walked to the window overlooking the White House gardens. Admiral, what's your assessment of our new role in galactic politics? Sir, we've fundamentally changed the balance of power. Aggressive empires can no longer expand through intimidation because smaller species know they have protection available. We've created a new model where strength protects the peaceful rather than preying on them. Any negative consequences? Some of the larger empires are forming defensive alliances, but they're focused on mutual protection rather than expansion. The age of conquest through fear is over. 3 months after the Kepler incident, the effects were visible across the galaxy. The Dominion Empire had split into 7 smaller republics as subject species declared independence. The Hegemony Coalition had abandoned its expansion plans and was negotiating trade agreements instead of demanding tribute. The consortium had halted its territorial expansion after 3 of their target systems requested human protection. Captain Torres, now promoted to Commodore for her actions at Kepler, stood on the bridge of her new command ship, the heavy cruiser Defender. She was leading a patrol through the outer territories, where many newly independent worlds were establishing their own governments. Commodore, her communications officer reported, we're receiving a greeting from the Kepler 438 colony. They're requesting a formal visit. Torres smiled. Kepler 438 had been one of the first worlds to declare independence from the Dominion, inspired by the rescue of the Aquilan research vessel. Set course for Kepler 438. Let's see how our friends are doing. The colony was a mixed settlement. Former Dominion subjects working together with human advisors and Aquilan scientists. As Torres toured the agricultural facilities, she marveled at the cooperation between species that had once been enemies. The underwater farms are producing twice our projected yield, explained Dr. Blue Tide, an Aquilan scientist. Human engineering and Aquilan biology make an excellent combination. What about security? Torres asked the colony administrator, a former Dominion subject who had led the independence movement. No problems, Commodore. Word has spread that this colony is under human protection. Pirates and raiders give us a wide berth. That evening, Torres attended a celebration in the colony's main hall. Children of 3 different species played together while their parents discussed trade agreements and scientific cooperation. It was exactly what the human response had been designed to protect. Peaceful beings working together for a better future. Commodore Torres, a young Aquilan approached her. Are you the captain who called for help at Kepler? I am, Torres replied. My parents were on the gentle current. They said you stayed to protect them even though your ship was small. Torres knelt down to the child's level. Your parents are brave scientists who helped make the galaxy a better place. Protecting them was the right thing to do. Will humans always protect us? Torres looked around the celebration, seeing the hope and determination in the faces of beings who were building something new together. As long as there are those who need protection from bullies, humans will be there to help. The child smiled and ran back to the mixed group of young beings, all playing together without regard for species or origin. 6 months after Kepler, Ambassador Chen received a formal request that marked the complete transformation of galactic politics. The Galactic Council, once dominated by large empires, was requesting human membership. Ambassador Chen, the council president, transmitted, the Human Federation has demonstrated a commitment to protecting civilian populations and maintaining galactic peace. We formally request that humanity join the Galactic Council as a permanent member. Chen smiled as she composed her response. The Human Federation accepts membership in the Galactic Council. We look forward to working with all peaceful species to build a galaxy where strength protects the innocent rather than preying upon them. As news of Human Council membership spread, the final pieces of the new galactic order fell into place. Aggressive expansion was no longer profitable when victims could call upon the Deathworlders for protection. Trade and cooperation became more valuable than conquest and intimidation. The galaxy had learned a simple truth. Predators who protected the innocent were far more dangerous than predators who devoured them. And humanity, the ultimate predators from the ultimate death world, had chosen to be guardians rather than conquerors. The age of galactic bullying was over. In its place rose an era where the strong protected the weak, where friendship mattered more than fear, and where a simple distress call from peaceful scientists could unleash the full fury of Earth's children. In defense of justice, the Deathworlders had found their purpose among the stars, not as destroyers, but as the universe's ultimate guardians. Admiral Kess stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the tactical display with growing fear. Red lights blinked across the star map like drops of blood. Each red light meant another world was gone, another billion souls consumed by the enemy. The bridge crew worked in silence around her. They all knew what those red lights meant. The Void Collective was coming, and nothing could stop them. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Vex from his station. His blue scales had turned pale with stress. "We just lost contact with the mining colonies near Jupiter Station. That makes 17 star systems in 3 days. Kess felt her 4 hearts skip a beat. 17 systems, billions of people. All gone. The enemy ships were like nothing they had ever seen before. They looked alive, like giant space creatures made of metal and flesh. When they attacked a planet, they didn't just destroy it. They ate it. They consumed everything. The land, the oceans, the atmosphere, even the people. Then they grew bigger and stronger. "How long until they reach our home worlds?" she asked. Vex checked his instruments. "At their current speed, less than 2 days, Admiral." The bridge fell quiet, except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. 2 days. After fighting for 3 months, they had 2 days left before the core worlds fell. Kess thought about her home planet of Valthara, with its crystal, cities, and peaceful gardens. Soon it would be nothing but empty space. Commander Roth approached her station. He was the oldest officer on the ship, and his tentacles shook slightly as he walked. "Admiral, there is one option we haven't discussed." "Speak," Kess said. "The humans, Admiral. The Deathworlders." Every person on the bridge turned to stare at him. Some gasped. Others stepped backward in fear. The name alone was enough to terrify most civilized beings in the galaxy, humans. The barbarian race from the nightmare planet called Earth. Their world was so dangerous that just living there for 1 day would kill most aliens. Extreme weather, deadly animals, poisonous plants, and natural disasters that happened regularly. Only the most savage species could survive on such a world. The Galactic Council banned all contact with their species, Kess reminded him. After the Proxima incident, they declared humans too dangerous for civilized contact. She remembered, reading the classified reports years ago. Pirates had attacked a human cargo ship carrying families and children. The human response had been swift and terrible. A single human warship had hunted down the entire pirate fleet, over 300 vessels, and destroyed them all in less than an hour. Not defeated, not captured, completely destroyed. The human ship hadn't just used weapons, it had used things that shouldn't exist. Gravity bombs that crushed entire ships into marbles, energy beams that made matter simply disappear, missiles that could think and hunt their targets across entire star systems. The reports said their weapons were unlike anything we'd ever seen, Kess whispered. They don't just win battles, they end them so completely that other enemies surrender just from hearing about it. Commander Roth nodded. Yes, Admiral. But we're facing extinction. The Void Collective has eaten everything we've thrown at them. Our best plasma cannons, our quantum torpedoes, our gravity weapons. Nothing works. The enemy just absorbs the energy and becomes stronger. On the main screen, another star system's beacon went dark. The Void Collective had consumed another world while they talked. "What do we know about human military strength?" Kess asked. Lieutenant Vex pulled up what little data they had. "Very little, Admiral. They keep their fleet locations secret, but intelligence estimates suggest they have at least 1,000 ships in deep space, maybe more. And their technology? Far beyond ours," Vex admitted. "The energy readings from that single ship at Proxima were higher than our entire battle fleet combined." Kess stared at the tactical display. More red lights appeared as the Void Collective spread like a disease across the galaxy. In 2 days, her people would be dead. In a week, every civilized species in this part of space would be extinct. "Admiral," called the communications officer, "emergency transmission from the Defense Council. They're ordering all remaining fleets to fall back to the core worlds for a final stand." A final stand. Kess almost laughed. They had already thrown everything they had at the enemy. What could a final stand accomplish except to give the Void Collective more food? "Prepare an emergency transmission," she ordered suddenly. "Maximum power, broad-spectrum broadcast." "Admiral?" Vex asked. "What kind of transmission?" "A distress call to any human ships in range." The bridge crew stared at her in shock. Some looked terrified. Others looked relieved. They all knew this was their last chance. "Are you sure about this, Admiral?" Commander Roth asked quietly. "The humans might be worse than the enemy we're facing." Kess thought about that. The reports described humans as savage warriors who enjoyed battle. They came from a world that tried to kill them every day, so they had become the most dangerous predators in known space. They had never lost a war, never retreated from a fight, never shown mercy to their enemies, but they had also never attacked, without cause. The Proxima pirates had started that fight, and according to the reports, humans valued their families and children above all else. They weren't monsters. They were just very, very good at killing monsters. "Signal ready, Admiral," the communications officer reported. Kess took a deep breath. "This is Admiral Kess of the Valtharan Defense Corps to any human vessels in range. We are facing an extinction-level threat. An unknown enemy has consumed 17 star systems in 3 days. Our weapons are ineffective. We are requesting immediate assistance under the Galactic Emergency Protocols. Please respond." The message shot out into space, traveling faster than light toward the dark regions where humanity waited. Automated relay stations that had been silent for years suddenly activated, bouncing the signal deeper into the void. "Message sent, Admiral," the officer confirmed. Now they could only wait and hope that somewhere in the darkness the Deathworlders were listening. "How long for a response?" Kess asked. "If there are human ships within 50 light years, 3 hours minimum." 3 hours. Kess settled into her command chair and watched the tactical display. The red lights continued to spread as the Void Collective consumed world after world. In 3 hours, they would know if help was coming, or if they had just invited something, even worse to the party. Commander Roth sat down beside her. "Admiral, what if the humans demand payment for their help?" Kess had thought about that too. Humans were known to be practical. They didn't do anything without a reason. If they came to help, they would want something in return. "Then we'll pay whatever they ask," she said simply. "Better to be alive and in debt than dead and free." On the screen, another world died, but for the first time in months, Admiral Kess felt something other than despair. She felt hope and fear, because somewhere in the darkness, the most dangerous species in the galaxy had heard their call for help. The question now was whether salvation was coming, or if they had just summoned something that would make the Void Collective look like a minor threat. Time would tell. It always did. 3 hours after sending the distress signal, Lieutenant Vex's station exploded with warning sounds. Lights flashed red across his console as alarms screamed through the bridge. "Admiral!" he shouted over the noise. "Massive gravity readings! At the edge of the system! Something huge just appeared!" Admiral Kess rushed to his station, her forearms working quickly across the controls. What she saw on the screens made no sense. The numbers were impossible. "That can't be right," she said. "These readings suggest something with the mass of a small moon just materialized out of nowhere. Multiple contacts emerging from what looks like artificial wormholes," Vex reported. His voice cracked with stress. "Admiral, these ships are enormous." The main view screen flickered to life, showing the outer edge of their star system. Space itself seemed to be tearing open like fabric. Through the tiers came ships that looked nothing like anything the galaxy had ever built. These were not the smooth, elegant vessels of civilized space. These ships were angular and brutal, made of dark metal that seemed to eat light. Strange energy patterns crawled across their hulls like living things. They looked more like weapons than ships. "How many?" Admiral Kess asked. "Counting 17. No, 25. Admiral, they keep coming through the portals." More ships emerged from the tiers in space. Small fighter craft that moved like hungry insects. Medium cruisers bristling with weapon ports. And at the center, something that defied belief. "The largest vessel is reading at over 15 kilometers long," Vex whispered. "It's bigger than our space stations." Commander Roth joined them at the tactical display, his tentacles trembling. "Admiral, I'm detecting energy signatures that aren't in any of our databases. The power readings are extraordinary." The massive ships moved through, space with perfect coordination, like a pack of hunting animals. They arranged themselves in a formation that no civilized military would recognize, not a defensive line or an attack formation, but something designed for total destruction. "Admiral," called Dex from the communications station. "We're receiving a transmission. It's from the human fleet." Kess felt her secondary heart stop. "Put it through." The view screen changed to show a figure that made every person on the bridge step backward in fear. The human was tall and broad-shouldered, wearing dark armor that looked like it was made from the same light-eating material as their ships. But it was the eyes that were truly terrifying, cold, calculating, and completely without fear. "This is Fleet Admiral Marcus Kane of the Terran Defense Force," the human said. His voice was deep and controlled, carrying authority that seemed to vibrate in their bones. "We received your distress call regarding an extinction-level threat." Admiral Kess forced herself to speak, fighting every instinct that told her to run. "Admiral Kane, we are grateful for your response. The hostile force has consumed 17 star systems in 3 days. Our weapons have no effect on them." Kane's expression didn't change, but something flickered in those predatory eyes. "Show me everything you have on this enemy. The tactical." Data flowed between their ships through quantum channels. Kess watched as the human admiral reviewed information about the Void Collective with terrifying speed. His eyes moved across the data like a machine processing information. When he looked up again, there was something new in his expression, something that made her want to hide. "Interesting," Kane said calmly. "Biomechanical entities with adaptive capabilities. We've encountered similar organisms before." "You have?" Kess asked. "What happened to them?" Kane's smile was cold and sharp like a blade. "We made them extinct." On the tactical display, the human fleet began moving toward the advancing Void Collective. Each ship radiated power that dwarfed anything in the Valtharan arsenal. The way they moved reminded Kess of sharks circling prey. "Admiral Kane," she called out. "What are your tactical plans?" The human's response sent chills through her entire body. "We're going hunting." As the transmission ended, Commander Roth moved close to her side. "Admiral, have we made a terrible mistake?" Through the view screen, they watched the dark human. Ships accelerate toward the approaching biomechanical swarm. Energy patterns began building along their hulls, and space around them started to bend and twist in ways that hurt to look at. "Admiral," Vex reported from his station, "the human ships are generating fields that are affecting local space-time. I've never seen technology like this." The lead human vessel, the massive dreadnought called Retribution, began to change shape. Its hull split open like a flower, revealing weapon systems that seemed to exist partially in normal space and partially somewhere else entirely. "Distance to the Void Collective?" Kess asked. 12,000 kilometers and closing," Vex answered. "The enemy bioships are beginning their adaptive scanning procedures. They're trying to analyze the human vessel signatures, but the humans weren't waiting for the enemy to finish their scans. Without warning, reality around the human fleet began to distort. The laws of physics seemed to bend as exotic energy fields activated. Space itself twisted into shapes that shouldn't exist. "What are they doing?" Kess whispered. Her answer came as the first human weapons fired. What emerged from the Retribution wasn't energy or projectiles. It was something far worse. A beam of pure destruction that made matter age millions of years in seconds shot out and struck the lead bioship. The massive enemy vessels simply crumbled into cosmic dust. The smaller human ships opened fire with weapons that defied understanding, gravity weapons that crushed matter into black holes, quantum disruptors that tore apart atomic bonds, phase cannons that shot through shields as if they didn't exist. "The bioships are trying to adapt," Vex reported with awe in his voice. "But the human weapons keep changing faster than they can analyze them." 3 more collective vessels died. Under the human assault, their death screams echoing across space. The remaining bioships tried to form a defensive cluster, using tactics that had worked against every other species. Admiral Kane's voice cut through their communications again. "All ships, implement Protocol 7. No survivors, no samples, no traces." What happened next would give Admiral Kess nightmares for the rest of her life. The human ships suddenly accelerated beyond the speed that physics should allow. Their hulls began shifting and changing like living creatures. As they closed the distance, Kess realized with growing horror that the human vessels weren't just ships, they were predators. The Retribution opened completely, revealing weapon systems that seemed to reach into other dimensions. When it fired again, the targeted bioship didn't just explode. It was erased from reality so completely that space forgot it had ever existed. "Admiral," Commander Roth said weakly, "are we certain these humans are here to help us?" The battle was over in less than 20 minutes. An enemy force that had consumed 17 star systems was completely destroyed. Not defeated, not damaged, erased. As the human fleet regrouped, Admiral Kane appeared on their screen again. "Threat neutralized. We detect no survivors or viable biological material." "How?" Kess managed to ask. "How did you destroy them so easily when our combined fleets couldn't even slow them down?" Kane's predatory smile returned. "You fight wars to win territory or resources. We fight wars to end them permanently." The dark human ships began opening new portals in space, preparing to leave as quickly as they had arrived. But Kane's final words before departing would echo through the galaxy for generations. "Admiral Kess, you should know something about the enemy you faced. They weren't the real threat. They were running from something worse." As the transmission ended and the human fleet vanished into their artificial wormholes, Admiral Kess stared at the empty space where the Void Collective had been destroyed. For the first time, she wondered if calling the humans had been salvation or the beginning of something even more terrifying. 2 hours after the human fleet vanished, Admiral Kess received a priority transmission that changed everything she thought she knew about the war. "Admiral," Lieutenant Vex called from his station, his blue scales still pale from witnessing the human attack. "Emergency communication from Admiral Kane. He says it's urgent." The view screen activated, showing the human commander once again. But this time, he wasn't on a warship. The background looked like a scientific laboratory, all white walls and blinking computers. "Admiral Kess," Kane began, his voice carrying a tone she hadn't heard before. "Was it concern? We need to discuss what you just witnessed." "Admiral Kane, our entire civilization owes you a debt we can never repay," Kess replied formally. "The collective would have consumed every living thing in this sector." Kane's expression grew dark. "That's exactly what we need to talk about. Our analysis of the bioships has revealed disturbing information. The entities you call the Void Collective were not native to this galaxy." The words hit Kess like a physical blow. "What do you mean?" "They were refugees," Kane continued, "running from something that was hunting them across intergalactic space. Our xenobiology teams have completed their analysis of the wreckage." Commander Roth stepped forward, his tentacles curling with nervous energy. "Refugees from what?" Kane gestured to someone off-screen, and new data began flowing to their ship. "The bioships show signs of extreme stress and panic. They weren't attacking your worlds because they were evil. They were consuming everything they could find because they were desperate." "Desperate for what?" Kess asked, though she feared the answer. "Energy. Mass. Resources to keep running from whatever was chasing them." Kane's face grew grim. "And according to our deep space monitoring stations, that something has found their trail. The tactical display updated with new information from human sensor networks that apparently stretched across half the galaxy." What Kess saw made her feel sick. "Gravitational anomalies detected at the galactic rim," Kane reported. "Something massive is coming through the void between galaxies. Multiple contacts, each one larger than anything we've ever recorded." "How long?" Kess whispered. 72 hours until the first scouts reach our territory," Kane replied. 2 weeks until the main force arrives." "What do they want?" Kane's answer froze the blood in her veins. "Everything, but not in the way you're thinking. The collective. Consumed matter and energy. These new entities consume reality itself." Lieutenant Vex spoke up from his station. "Admiral, what does that mean exactly?" Kane's image shifted, showing recorded data from sensors that must have been incredibly advanced. "They don't destroy matter. They erase it from existence. Space, time, the fundamental forces that hold the universe together, they consume it all and leave nothing behind." "No conventional weapon could stop something like that," Commander Roth said quietly. "Exactly," Kane confirmed, "which is why we're implementing the Tartarus Protocol." Admiral Kess had never heard the term, but the way Kane said it made her secondary, hearts race with fear. "What is the Tartarus Protocol?" "Total war mobilization of all human military assets," Kane explained. "We're pulling back from every frontier colony and consolidating our forces around Earth. Every human world is being converted into a fortress." "You're abandoning the galaxy?" Roth asked in disbelief. Kane shook his head. "We're preparing for the kind of siege warfare this galaxy has never seen, and we're offering other species a choice." "What kind of choice?" Kess asked, knowing she wouldn't like the answer. "Evacuation to the Sol system under human military protection, or face the reality devourers alone?" Kane's expression was completely serious. "Our combat simulations give us a 37% chance of survival if we work together." The bridge fell silent. The humans, the most feared military force in known space, were giving themselves less than even odds. "What about the other civilizations?" Kess asked. "The Galactic Council? The Trade Federation?" Kane's expression grew even darker. "We've sent the same message to every major power. Most are rejecting our offer. They believe their own defenses will be sufficient." "And you think they're wrong?" "Admiral Kess, we've fought the reality devourers before." Kane leaned forward, his eyes intense. "In the Andromeda Galaxy 2 million years ago. We're the only survivors of that war." The implications hit Kess like a hammer. "You're saying humanity has fought this enemy before?" "Our ancestors did. It's why we originally came to this galaxy. Kane's voice grew quiet. It's why we became what we are. When your homeworld tries to kill you every day, and cosmic horrors hunt your species across space, you either evolve into the ultimate predator or you die. Commander Roth spoke carefully. How many species survived in Andromeda? Kane's answer was a single word. 1. On the tactical display, more data flowed from human monitoring stations. The gravitational disturbances at the galactic rim were growing stronger. Whatever was coming was big enough to bend space-time just by existing. The choice is yours, Kane continued. But decide quickly. Our evacuation fleets can only make one trip before we have to seal the Sol system. How many ships can you send? Kess asked. Enough for roughly 10% of each willing. Species population, Kane replied bluntly. Priority goes to scientists, engineers, children, and military personnel. Only 10%? Vex asked in shock. Kane's expression was apologetic but firm. The reality devourers move fast. We can't save everyone, but we can save enough to ensure your species survives. The weight of the decision pressed down on Admiral Kess like a physical force. Choose 10% of her people to live while the rest faced extinction. Trust the most dangerous species in the galaxy to protect them. Hope that humanity's 37% survival estimate was accurate. What guarantee do we have that you won't simply use us as cannon fodder? Commander Roth asked. Kane's smile was sharp, but genuine. Because we need you alive. Every species that evacuates brings knowledge, skills, and genetic diversity that increases our chances of survival. Dead allies are useless allies. On the main screen, new alerts appeared as more human ships emerged from wormholes throughout the galaxy. But these weren't warships. They were massive transport vessels, their hulls designed to carry millions of refugees. Admiral, Kane said, I need an answer. The evacuation ships are already en route to species that have agreed. Time is running out. Kess thought about her homeworld of Vile Thara, with its crystal cities and peaceful gardens. She thought about the billions of people who would die if she chose wrong. She thought about the 10% who might live if she chose right. Signal the government, she ordered. Tell them we're going to Earth. Kane nodded approvingly. Smart choice, Admiral. Prepare your people for departure. And Admiral, yes? Welcome to the last war. As the transmission ended, Kess stared at the tactical display showing human evacuation fleets spreading across the galaxy. In 72 hours, the real enemy would arrive. The enemy that had consumed an entire galaxy before and was coming to finish what it started. For the first time in her life, Admiral Kess was grateful that humanity existed. Because if anyone could fight cosmic horror and win, it would be the species that had learned to thrive on a world that tried to kill them. Every single day, the question was whether even the Deathworlders could stop something that ate reality itself. 5 days after accepting the human evacuation offer, Admiral Kess found herself aboard a massive human transport ship, watching her homeworld shrink into the distance. Around her, thousands of her people sat in organized rows, carrying only the few possessions they could take to their new life in the Sol system. The human ship was unlike anything she had ever seen. The corridors were wide enough for species 3 times her size. The artificial gravity could be adjusted for different physiologies. Translation devices were built into every surface. It was clear that humanity had experience moving refugees. Admiral, Lieutenant Vex approached her observation station. We're receiving transmissions from the other evacuation fleets. 67 different species have accepted the human offer. And how many refused? Over 200, Vex replied, quietly, including the Galactic Council leadership. Commander Roth joined them at the viewport. His tentacles were wrapped around a small container, holding soil from their homeworld, one of the few personal items they had been allowed to bring. Any word from the species that stayed behind? He asked. Vex checked his communication pad. The hegemony has fortified their core worlds. The Trade Federation is massing their fleets at the galactic border. The Council thinks their shield generators and quantum barriers will be enough. Admiral Kess said nothing. She had seen what the humans did to the Void Collective, creatures that had consumed 17 star systems. If the reality devourers were worse than that, no conventional defense would matter. A human officer approached their group. She was tall and lean, with the controlled movements of a professional soldier. "Admiral Kess, I'm Captain Sarah Martinez. Admiral Kane wants to speak with all refugee fleet commanders." They followed her through the ship's corridors to a large briefing room. Inside, Kess saw representatives from dozens of different species. Some she recognized, others she had never encountered. All of them looked scared and lost. Admiral Kane stood at the front of the room, but he looked different now. The predatory confidence was still there, but she could see exhaustion in his eyes. The weight of commanding a war against cosmic forces was taking its toll. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings," Kane began, "in 18 hours, the Reality Devourer Scouts will reach the Galactic Rim. In 12 days, their main force will arrive. I want you to understand exactly what we're facing." The lights dimmed, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the room. What it showed made several aliens gasp in fear. "This is Sensor, data from our deep space monitoring stations," Kane explained. "The enemy doesn't travel in ships as we understand them. They exist as tiers in reality itself, moving through space by consuming the fabric of existence." The hologram showed dark wounds in space moving like living things. Where they passed, stars simply vanished. Not destroyed or consumed, erased, as if they had never existed. "How do you fight something like that?" asked a representative from the aquatic Ceteri species. Kane's smile was grim. "Very carefully, and with weapons that most civilized species would consider impossible or immoral," he gestured, and the display changed to show the Sol system. What Kess saw made her understand why humanity had a chance against the impossible. Every planet had been turned into a fortress. Mercury was now a solid mass of weapons platforms. Venus was wrapped in energy shields that turned the entire planet into a defensive barrier. Mars glowed with the light of factories producing ammunition and equipment. But Earth itself was the most impressive sight. The human homeworld was surrounded by 7 rings of space stations, each one the size of a large city. Between the rings, millions of gravitational mines floated in perfect formation, ready to create artificial black holes at a moment's notice. "The Sol Fortress," Kane explained. 15 years of construction, using technology we developed during our first war with the Reality Devourers. "This isn't your first time fighting them?" asked a crystalline being from the Shinar Collective. Kane shook his head. "Our ancestors faced them in Andromeda. Most of humanity died in that war. The survivors fled here and spent 2 million years preparing for this moment." The weight of that statement settled over the room. Humanity had been planning this war for longer than most species had existed. "What do you need from us?" Admiral Kess asked. "Integration," Kane replied. "Your knowledge of galactic civilization, your scientific expertise, your cultural perspectives. Every species that evacuated brings something unique to our defense." A new voice spoke from the back of the room. "And if you lose this war?" Kane turned to face the speaker, a tall, insectoid creature with compound eyes. "Then we all die together, but we won't die quietly." He gestured again, and the display showed human fleet positions throughout the Sol system. Thousands of ships waited in perfect formation, their dark hulls bristling with weapons that bent the laws of physics. "The evacuation fleets are our last ones," Kane continued. "Starting tomorrow, we seal the Sol system. No one gets in or out until this war is over." "What about the species that refused your offer?" asked Commander Roth. Kane's expression grew sad. "We've left communication buoys along our retreat route. If any of them survive the initial assault and change their minds, we'll know. But realistically, Anyone who isn't behind our defenses when the main force arrives will be lost. The briefing continued for 2 hours, covering everything from living arrangements in the Sol system to military integration procedures. When it ended, Admiral Kess felt both hopeful and terrified. As the alien representatives filed out, Kane approached her personally. "Admiral, I wanted to speak with you privately," he said. "Your people's military experience will be valuable in the coming fight. I'm hoping you'll accept a position in our integrated command structure." Kess was surprised. "You want aliens commanding human ships?" "I want the best minds available commanding whatever ships can best use them," Kane corrected. "The reality devourers have consumed 2 galaxies. They've seen everything the universe can throw at them, except us." "What makes humanity different?" Kane's predatory smile returned. "We're the only species that has survived fighting them before, and we're the only species crazy enough to turn our entire star system into a weapon." Through the viewport, Kess could see other evacuation ships in their convoy. Millions of beings from across the galaxy, all hoping that the most dangerous species in known space could protect them from something even worse. "Admiral Kane," she said carefully, "what if your 37% survival estimate is wrong?" Kane's answer chilled her to the bone. "Then we make sure the reality devourers remember us. We make them pay such a high price for this galaxy that they think twice before consuming the next one." As Kane walked away, Admiral Kess stared out at the stars and wondered if they were flying toward salvation or simply choosing how they wanted to die. But for the first time since the war began, she felt something other than despair. She felt determination. Because if the Deathworlders were willing to fight the impossible, then she would fight beside them, whatever the cost. Admiral Kess stood on the observation deck of the human command station orbiting Earth, watching the most incredible sight in galactic history unfold before her eyes. The Sol system had been transformed into something that defied imagination, a fortress designed to fight gods. It had been 6 days since the evacuation fleets arrived, 6 days since humanity sealed their star system and prepared for the final battle. Now, the reality devourers were only hours away. "Status report," she called to Lieutenant Vex, who had been assigned to her new position as Alien Integration Coordinator. "All refugee populations are secured in the deep shelters," Vex reported. "Military personnel from 43 species have been integrated into the human command structure. Fleet Admiral Kane wants to see you on the command bridge." Kess made her way through the station's corridors, passing humans and aliens working side by side at massive control panels. The integration had been surprisingly smooth. Humanity seemed to have planned for this exact scenario. The command bridge was a marvel of technology that operated on principles she couldn't begin to understand. Holographic displays showed every part of the Sol system in real time. Energy readings, weapon status, shield generators, all monitored by beings from across the galaxy. Fleet Admiral Kane stood at the center of it all, his hands dancing across controls that managed the defense of an entire star system. When he saw her approach, he nodded grimly. "Admiral Kess, good timing. We're about to get our first look at the enemy." The main display shifted to show the outer edge of the solar system. At first, Kess saw nothing but empty space. Then her sensors began detecting something that made her secondary heart stop beating. "What am I looking at?" she whispered. "Reality tears," Kane replied. "The scouts have arrived." Space itself was opening like wounds, revealing glimpses of absolute nothingness beyond. Through the tears came entities that hurt to perceive directly, dark forms that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions that shouldn't exist. "How many?" Kess asked. 17 confirmed contacts," reported a human officer whose cybernetic implants glowed with data streams. "Each one approximately 8 kilometers in length. They're conducting reconnaissance sweeps of our outer defenses." Kane activated the communication system. "All stations, this is command. The enemy has arrived. Begin Phase 1 defensive protocols. Throughout the Sol system, humanity's preparations began to activate. The gravitational mines armed themselves, ready to create black holes that would trap anything trying to approach Earth. The weapon platforms on Mercury powered up, their energy signatures visible from across the system. "Admiral Kane," Kess said, "may I ask what your battle plan involves?" Kane's smile was sharp and predatory. "We're going to teach the universe that some species fight back." On the tactical display, the reality devourers began their attack. They moved through space like living nightmares, their forms shifting between dimensions as they approached the outer defenses. The first line of defense activated as the enemy scouts reached the asteroid belt. Hidden weapon platforms that had been disguised as asteroids suddenly revealed themselves, firing exotic energy beams that most species had never seen before. But the reality devourers simply absorbed the attacks, growing larger and more solid as they fed on the energy. "Phase 1 weapons are ineffective," reported the tactical officer. "Enemy is adapting and advancing." "Expected," Kane replied calmly. "Begin Phase 2. The second defensive ring activated as the scouts passed Mars. Massive gravity projectors created fields of twisted space-time that would confuse and disorient normal ships. But the reality devourers moved through the distortions like they weren't there. "They're ignoring our gravity weapons," Vex reported with growing alarm. "Of course, they are," Kane said. "They eat space-time for breakfast. Commander Torres, begin Phase 3. The third ring of defenses was different. Instead of trying to stop the enemy, humanity did something that made Admiral Kess question their sanity. They opened portals in space and began pouring energy directly into the reality devourers. "Are you feeding them?" she asked in shock. Kane's grin was terrifying. "We're giving them exactly what they want, all the energy they can consume." At first, it seemed like a disaster. The enemy scouts grew larger and more powerful as they absorbed the massive energy streams. Their forms became more solid, more real. Then, Kess realized what the humans were doing. "You're making them vulnerable," she whispered. "Exactly," Kane confirmed. "Reality devourers exist partially outside normal space. They can only be hurt when they're fully materialized in our dimension." The moment the enemy scouts became completely solid, humanity struck with their real weapons. What emerged from the hidden weapon platforms wasn't energy or projectiles. It was something far worse, beams of pure entropy that aged matter at the quantum level, gravity crushers that compressed entire enemy forms into singularities, quantum disruptors that tore apart the fundamental forces holding their bodies together. The reality devourer scouts died screaming across dimensions, their death cries echoing through space-time itself. "Scouts eliminated," reported the tactical officer. "But Admiral, we're detecting massive gravitational disturbances at the galactic rim. The main force is accelerating their approach." Kane nodded grimly. "How long?" 6 hours until they arrive in force. The main display updated to show what was coming. Not 17 scouts, but thousands of reality devourers, each one larger than the scouts. And behind them, something so massive that it bent space around itself just by existing. "The Devourer Prime," Kane said quietly. "The entity that consumed Andromeda." Admiral Kess stared at the readings in horror. The Prime was larger than Earth's moon, a wound in reality so deep that looking at it made her feel sick. "How do you fight something like that?" she asked. Kane turned to address the entire command center, his voice carrying to every human and alien working together to defend their new home. 6 hours from now, the greatest threat our universe has ever known will arrive at Earth," he announced. "They've consumed 2 galaxies. They've never been stopped, never been defeated, never been made to retreat." He paused, letting the weight of those words settle over the bridge. "But they've never faced a Deathworld species before. They've never encountered beings who learn to survive by becoming the most dangerous predators in existence. They've never fought an enemy that turns their entire star system into a weapon. The humans and aliens around the bridge began to smile, some grimly, others with savage anticipation. In 6 hours, we're going to teach the reality devourers what happens when they try to consume the wrong species, Kane continued. We're going to show them that some prey fights back. As alarms began sounding throughout the Sol system, signaling the approach of the main enemy force, Admiral Kess felt something she hadn't experienced in months. She felt ready to fight. Because if the Deathworlders could turn their impossible world into a paradise and their star system into a fortress, then maybe, just maybe, they could turn a hopeless war into humanity's greatest victory. The final battle for the existence of all life was about to begin, and for the first time since this nightmare started, Admiral Kess believed they might actually win.